Kingston, Jamaica, August 1976. The streets were tense. Political violence had torn the city apart. Gangs loyal to different parties fought for control of neighborhoods. The police, supposed to keep peace, often made things worse. They were brutal, corrupt, and feared more than respected. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell because we uncover the hidden gems that shape the legends we know today. Bob Marley was walking through Trenchtown, the neighborhood where he'd grown up. It was mid-afternoon, the sun brutal overhead. Bob wore simple clothes, jeans, and a t-shirt, his dreadlocks tied back. He'd just left a recording session and was heading home. He liked walking through Trenchtown. It reminded him where he came from, kept him grounded despite his growing fame. As Bob turned a corner onto Spanish Town Road, he heard shouting, angry voices, the sound of something hitting flesh. Bob stopped and looked. 50 feet away, 3 police officers had a young man pinned against a wall. The kid looked maybe 17, thin, wearing torn clothes. One officer held the kid's arms behind his back. Another was hitting him. Hard punches to the stomach, the ribs. The third officer stood watching, hand on his gun. The kid was screaming. Not words, just sounds of pain. A small crowd had gathered, watching from a distance, but nobody was intervening. In Kingston in 1976, intervening with police could get you killed. Bob Marley didn't hesitate. He walked straight toward the officers. "Stop!" Bob's voice cut through the noise. What did he do? The officer doing the hitting turned around, fist still raised. He saw Bob and his eyes widened slightly. Everyone in Jamaica knew Bob Marley's face. "This doesn't concern you," the officer said. His name was Sergeant Thomas Clarke, a man known in Trenchtown for his violence. "Keep walking." "What did he do?" Bob repeated, not moving. "He's a thief," Clarke said. "Stole from a shop." Bob looked at the kid. The boy's lip was split, blood running down his chin. His eye was already swelling shut. "Did you steal?" Bob asked him. The kid shook his head frantically. "No, sir, I swear. I was just walking. They stopped me and—" Clarke hit the kid again, cutting off his words. "Shut your mouth." Bob took a step closer. "Stop hitting him." "I said this doesn't concern you, Marley." Clarke's voice was harder now, threatening. "You're famous, but you're not above the law. Keep walking or we'll arrest you too." "For what?" Bob asked calmly. "Asking a question?" The crowd was growing. People recognized Bob. Word was spreading quickly. More people came out of shops, out of houses. They formed a loose circle around the scene. Watching, waiting, Clarke looked around nervously. He didn't like crowds. Crowds could turn into mobs. "This boy is a criminal. We're taking him in." "Then take him in," Bob said. "But stop beating him. He's not resisting. There's 3 of you and 1 of him. You don't need to hit him." "We'll handle this our way," Clarke said. Bob looked at the other 2 officers. They seemed less certain than Clarke. One of them, a younger officer named Williams, looked almost ashamed. Bob made a decision. He walked past Clarke, directly to where the kid was pinned against the wall. He stood between the officers and the boy. "What are you doing?" Clarke demanded. "If you want to hit him again," Bob said quietly, "you'll have to go through me first." The crowd murmured. This was unprecedented. Nobody challenged the police like this, not even Bob Marley. Clarke's face reddened with anger and humiliation. "Move! Right now!" "No," Bob said simply. "I will arrest you." "For what?" "Obstruction, interfering with police business." then arrest me. Bob sat down on the ground, his back against the wall, right next to the kid. But I'm not moving. The kid stared at Bob in shock. Bob Marley, the most famous man in Jamaica, was sitting on a dirty Kingston street, risking arrest for him, a nobody, a kid from Trenchtown who most people crossed the street to avoid. Clarke didn't know what to do. Arresting Bob Marley would cause a riot. The crowd was now over 100 people, maybe more, all watching, all waiting to see what Clarke would do. "Last chance, Marley," Clarke said. "Move or we take you in." Bob looked up at him calmly. "If you arrest him, you arrest me. We go together." The younger officer, Williams, stepped forward. "Sarge, maybe we should just let it go. The kid's had enough." "Shut up, Williams," Clarke snapped. But Williams had said what the other officers were thinking. This situation was getting out of control. Clarke had beaten up hundreds of kids in Trenchtown. Nobody had ever cared. But now Bob Marley was sitting on the ground, refusing to move, and 100 people were watching. "What did he steal?" Bob asked. "You said he stole. What did he take?" Clarke hesitated. A mango, from a fruit cart." "A mango," Bob repeated. "You're beating a child for a mango?" "The law is the law." Bob reached into his pocket and pulled out some bills. Jamaican dollars. He held them up. "How much does a mango cost? $1? $2? He pulled out a $5 bill. "Here, $5, for the mango. Now there's no theft. Let him go." Clarke stared at the money. "It's not about the money." "Then what's it about?" Bob asked. "Justice. This is justice. 3 grown men beating a child on the street?" Someone in the crowd shouted, "Let the boy go." Another voice, "Bob Marley's right. You're bullies." The crowd was getting bolder. Clarke looked around. This was bad. If he arrested Bob, there'd be a riot. If he backed down, he'd look weak. He was trapped. Bob stood up slowly. He took the kid's hand and pulled him to his feet. The boy was shaking, terrified, but Bob held his hand firmly. "We're going to walk away now," Bob said to Clarke. "You can arrest us both, or you can let us go. Your choice." Clarke's jaw tightened, his fists clenched. For a moment, it looked like he might actually try to arrest Bob, but then Williams stepped between them. "Let them go, Sarge," Williams said quietly. "This isn't worth it." Clarke stared at Bob with pure hatred, but he knew Williams was right. He'd lost this confrontation the moment Bob Marley sat down on that street. "Get out of here," Clarke spat. "Both of you, before I change my mind." Bob didn't hurry. He kept holding the kid's hand and walked slowly, deliberately, through the crowd. People reached out to touch Bob as he passed. Some were crying, others were cheering. Bob walked the kid 3 blocks away, to a small shop where his friend owned a restaurant. Once they were inside and safe, Bob finally let go of the kid's hand. "You okay?" Bob asked. The kid nodded, still too shocked to speak properly. His face was swelling badly. His ribs hurt where Clarke had hit him. "What's your name?" Bob asked. "Marcus," the kid whispered. "Marcus Brown." "Marcus, listen to me. You didn't do anything wrong today. You understand? Those men are bullies. They use their badges to hurt people. But you didn't deserve that." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "Why did you help me? You don't even know me." "I know you enough," Bob said. "I grew up in Trenchtown just like you. I know what it's like when nobody stands up for you, when the people who are supposed to protect you hurt you instead." Bob's friend brought ice wrapped in cloth for Marcus's face. Bob helped him hold it against his swelling eye. "Mr. Marley." Marcus said quietly. They're going to come after me later, when you're not there. Clarke doesn't forget. Bob knew Marcus was right. Clarke was the type to hold grudges. He'd find Marcus again, when there were no crowds, no witnesses, and it would be worse. You have family? Bob asked. My grandmother. She's old. She can't protect me. Bob thought for a moment. Then he made a decision. You're going to come work for me. Marcus stared. What? I need someone to help at my studio. Cleaning, organizing, running errands. It doesn't pay much, but you'll be around musicians, around music, and Clarke won't touch you if you're working for me. You interested? Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're serious? I don't joke about work. You want the job or not? Yes, Marcus said immediately. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bob smiled. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen how messy musicians are. That evening, Bob made phone calls. He contacted people he knew in the Jamaica Constabulary Force, people who weren't corrupt like Clarke. He filed a formal complaint about the beating. He made sure Clarke's superiors knew what had happened. Clarke was suspended for 2 weeks. It wasn't much, but it was something. And it sent a message. Even police weren't untouchable if they went too far. Marcus Brown worked at Tough Gong Studios, Bob's recording studio, for the next 3 years. He learned about music, about production, about the business. He watched Bob record Exodus and Kaya. He met musicians from around the world. But more importantly, Marcus learned something else from Bob. He learned that standing up for what's right matters, even when it's dangerous, even when it costs you something. In 1979, Marcus enrolled in law school at the University of the West Indies. Bob helped pay his tuition. Jamaica needs lawyers who remember what it's like to be beaten on the street, Bob told him. Lawyers who care about justice, not just law. Marcus graduated in 1984, 3 years after Bob died. He became a public defender, representing poor people who couldn't afford lawyers, people who were beaten by police, people who had nobody to stand up for them. Over the next 30 years, Marcus Brown became one of Jamaica's most respected human rights attorneys. He won dozens of cases against police brutality. He helped reform Jamaica's police oversight system. He trained young lawyers to fight for justice. In interviews, Marcus always told the same story. The story of the day Bob Marley sat on a Kingston street and refused to move until police stopped beating a kid who'd stolen a mango. Bob didn't just save me that day, Marcus would say. He taught me what courage looks like. Real courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid, but doing the right thing anyway. Bob was scared that day. I could see it in his eyes. Those police could have arrested him, beaten him, killed him. But he sat down next to me anyway, because it was right. In 2006, Marcus founded the Bob Marley Justice Initiative, a legal aid organization providing free representation to victims of police violence in Jamaica. The office walls are covered with photos of Bob. In the center is one photo that stands out. Bob sitting on a street, next to a beaten teenage boy, staring calmly at 3 police officers. Under the photo is a quote from Bob Marley. The people who are trying to make this world worse are not taking a day off. How can I? Today, Marcus is 65 years old. He still practices law. He still represents people who can't afford lawyers. And he still tells the story of August 1976 to every young person who walks through his office door. Bob Marley could have kept walking that day, Marcus tells them. He was famous. He was rich. He could have ignored what was happening and gone home to his comfortable house. But he didn't. He stopped. He intervened. He sat down on a dirty street next to a kid nobody cared about. And he changed my life. He changed hundreds of lives because I've tried to pass that lesson forward. That's what real power is, not using your privilege to stay safe, using it to protect people who have none. If this incredible story of courage, justice, and standing up for what's right moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this video with someone who works in justice, who fights for the powerless, or who needs to be reminded that one person can make a difference. Have you ever witnessed injustice and had to choose whether to intervene? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more untold stories about the moments when legends showed us what true courage looks like.